Hello, everyone. Samuel here once again, and we are continuing my series on AWS cloud solutions. So, once again, this is for cloud engineers, this is for IT executives that want to understand the landscape, right? Your CTO, your CEO, your chief financial officer, right? Wanting to understand the expenses and risks and maybe you want to just maybe you're a regular individual and you want to get certified for the AWS Cloud Practitioner, right? And there's an exam. So we are in the chapter 2 that I created, Core Cloud Concepts. And this lesson is 2.3, and it is the part 2 of our AWS Cloud Value Proposition. Let's move forward. Agility. So the next key idea in AWS's cloud value proposition is something called agility. And we've gone over this before, but honestly, it's this is often the number one reason organizations they move to AWS. Agility means you can launch products faster. You can test your new ideas more quickly and even fail earlier without heavy upfront costs. And this is going to help you learn, right? When you fail, you learn. So you're going to see what problems that you're going to face. And this is going to help you avoid the upfront costs that come with running your own on premises data center. So instead of waiting months to order, you're installing hardware, maybe you're not physically located near that data center, and then that data center they have to do third-party contractors to go in and do all the installations of your hardware. AWS lets you speed things up in minutes, so teams can focus on innovation instead of infrastructure, right? Also, the overhead costs to having somebody that's near that data center, right? Not everybody's going in Equinix, right? You might be going with a Cogent that has like 90, and then they're not providing any services. Good luck. So let's take a look at our SCQA: situation, complications, questions, and answers we get. Businesses, they need speed. That's a situation, right? And the complications that they're having is the legacy models, our on-prem setups, they delay our launches. So how can we move faster into, get set up or even into expand into new markets for additional revenue? Well, AWS Agility enables rapid testing and deployment. So we have two scopes of view, our technical teams, right, and our executives. And our technical teams, they're going to focus on faster initiatives, right? Focus in on that. And for our executives, faster time to market, it's going to drive your ROI. So, all right, let's go over to democratizing advanced tech. This is jargon, right? Sales jargon for um, AWS. They love this terminology. And all right, so one of the ways AWS makes this speed possible is through what they call democratizing advanced technologies. This is key terms you need it for the exam. So, in simple terms, what does this mean? Remove the jargon. AWS, they're taking responsibility of mastering their complex softwares and operations, things like your backups, your replication, your scaling and failover. So customers don't have to become experts in every tool. Remember what we previously went over. People are specializing now. There's over 200 plus applications for AWS and so much specialization going on. You're not going to have everything. But even so, you're going to get access to these different items. For example, you don't need to know the ins and the outs of managing Oracle databases or MongoDB or Apache Cassandra because AWS provides them as managed services. So that means the heavy operational work is already handled and you're just going to focus on using the service for your business needs. So let's take a look at the SCQA. The situation we have advanced tools, they require expertise, right? That could be overhead for new employees you'd have to hire or etc. But Complication is learning everything is going to slow your technical teams down. How can we use these tools without extra burdens? Well, AWS provides them as managed services. So for our technical teams, right, this means less operational overhead. And for our executives, it's going to reduce your staffing costs and risks. All right, let's do pay as you go. The next pillar we need to talk about is pay as you go pricing. And this is completely different than our legacy models or traditional data centers where you buy servers and storage upfront. So with AWS, you only pay while resources are running. And once you shut them down, the charges stop immediately. So, for instance, if you need to create a temporary environment that mirrors production for 8 hours of testing, you can deploy it, use it, and delete it, only paying for those exact 8 hours. All right. So, situation, the SCQA, traditionally, companies bought servers, right? You're buying your network gear, your storage up front, and then you had to pay staff to maintain them. Plus, you got your reoccurring data costs, which is often forgotten in our TCO, right? Your rack space, your cross connections monthly fees, and your bandwidth contracts, right? So the CFO and executives, they often forget about these hidden costs. Monthly data centers, they have cross connect charges. So your bandwidth fees from telecom carriers, like our main T1s, which I worked for, Hurricane Electric and Cogit Communications and Lumen L3, they're charging. You're getting multiple charges, not just the data center connection, but also the going to the meet me room, right? You have your maintenance contracts, your replacement cycles, your power problems and cooling problems. This is staffing overhead for 24/7 operations. And this makes your total cost of ownership, your TCO, much higher than just buying some servers. And once the money is spent, it's locked in. So even if business demand drops, you're stuck with it and you spent the money. How can companies avoid these dozens of hidden costs and still get the compute resources they need? With AWS pay as you go pricing, you only pay while resources are running. You could shut them down and then the billing stops. There's not these giant contracts, legal fees you have to go over reviewing them. No idle overhead, no telecom, bandwidth bills paying for your, 1 gig, 10 gig connections. AWS pricing, they also fold in your networking, your cooling, and your infrastructure operations that you'd otherwise pay separately. So this flexibility, it removes hidden costs and it's going to give you the financial leaders, you executive team, CTOs, predictable usage-based expenses instead of ballooning CapEx, which we're going to go into later on. Okay, one more second. All right, role specific notes. All right, let's go in. So for our heads of our technical teams and our engineers, no need to manage your racks, your bandwidth contracts, or your cross connects. You're going to focus on your apps and not your infrastructure. And for you executives and your CFO decision makers, this shifts your IT spend from your CapEx and to OpEx, right? This eliminates hidden TCO cost, your bandwidth data center, all that blah blah blah. And it's going to lower your financial risks. The hidden TCO, total cost of ownership costs. So let's take a look at scalability versus elasticity. So next comes scalability, which sometimes gets confused with elasticity, but they're not the same thing. Elasticity refers to automatically adding and removing resources to perfectly match demand, usually in a horizontal way, like adding or removing servers. But scalability is different. These are two keywords that will be on your exam. On the other hand, scalability is different. It's about being able to add resources when you need them and, either horizontally or vertically. Vertical scaling means boosting the power of maybe a single machine, for example, or adding more CPU or more compute or memory. But unlike elasticity, scalability doesn't mean automation, but it still supports your business growth and your system reliability. So let's take a look at the SCQA. The situation is your workloads are going to vary. And the complication that you have is if you're scaling incorrectly, you can fail. So, how can you handle growth reliably? With elasticity, you're auto adjusting. And with scalability, you add resources as you need them. So, with our technical teams, you're going to match the scaling model to your workload. And for our executives, reliability without overspending. Technical teams might overorder and then they're going to get hassled by executives. You spent money, you maybe, you know. So let's move on. Global reach. Another powerful value proposition of AWS is its global reach. AWS operates through regions and AZs, availability zones, and data centers spread across the globe, often located near major technology and population hubs, right? On top of that, AWS has added options like local zones, which help customers meet requirements for data residency or to serve users with lower latency, right? So, the SCQA, customers are worldwide. Latency and compliance, they vary by region. And the answer to that is for our technical teams is you have a design for low latency and you have a design for compliance. But for our executives, you have access to a global market. So this is actually really important, and I added it in last minute, right? This is a really high important note, and this is a actual practical solution situation that I've seen. This is not a theoretical, right? Another part of AWS's global reach that's worth calling out is AWS Outposts. And you could Google it, just type in AWS Outposts. Look, Outposts, they let companies run AWS infrastructure and servers physically inside their own facilities, but you're still connected to the AWS cloud. This is huge, huge, okay? This matters in industries where both low latency and strict compliance are critical, right? Your iGaming, your sports betting, and real time money games. Companies like 56-bit that specialize in these unique sectors, FinOps and iGaming, sports betting. I've seen them help multiple customers with these AWS Outpost setups. So, for example, if a betting platform must keep player data within a specific United States state, right, or a specific European Union country, AWS Outposts, they make that possible while still giving you access to the broader AWS ecosystem. So it also keeps your latency low for things like in-play wagers or real-time cash-based games, where even 1 second delay can impact users' trust and revenue. So in short, Outposts extend the AWS global infrastructure to local environments, giving companies the best of both worlds. Your on-prem control with AWS innovation. Once again, if you need somebody to assist you with this, I shout out to 56-bit, great company. So let's take a look at our SCQA, right? The industries like iGaming, sports betting, and money games. One, they need fast response times, low latency. And they often have rules about keeping player data inside their specific country or state. In the United States, it's different than Europe. Each state is like a country. But if you only run in a distant AWS region, the players, they might get lag, bad field delays, right? And then you're going to get a bad reputation, bad word of mouth. And if you go fully on-prem, you're stuck paying for the servers, your data center space, the bandwidth, the contracts. You pull your hair out, all that garbage again, all the stuff that cloud was supposed to fix. So, how do you keep the speed and have the compliance benefits without sliding back into old school infrastructure headaches? That's where AWS outposts come in. And I'll tell you one right now, I don't think that there's any book out there or certification guide that talks about the AWS outposts. So you're lucky that you have a guy like me adding this in for you. But they let you run AWS hardware and services right inside your local site while still tying you into the global AWS network. It's the best of both worlds, low latency and compliance locally. Plus, guess what? Scale and services from the cloud. This is great, guys. So, for our heads of our technical teams and our engineers, you're using the Outpost to meet your residency requirements and deliver, 10 milliseconds for in-play wagers and money games. For our executives, you're going to gain access to the regulated markets for your gambling, your iGaming, your sports betting, while reducing latency for customer experience so you could get good referral word of mouth about your company. It's going to drive your revenue, and that's going to keep risk away and help you keep your compliance costs predictable. All right. Economy of scale. Finally, let's cover economy of scale because AWS operates at massive scales, right? It gets much lower prices for compute, storage, and networking than most organizations could ever negotiate. AWS passes these savings back to the customer, which means you benefit from enterprise level pricing, even if you're just a small startup. So let's take a look at our SCQA for economy of scale. Infrastructure is expensive, right? Most firms can't negotiate global pricing. So, how do you reduce the IT spend? You let AWS take care of that for you because the AWS large scale purchases, it's going to lower your or the customer costs. So, for your technical teams, budget friendly, you're not upsetting the C level executives, right? Saying the things what you need. You get budget predictability. For executives, reduced CapEx, and a better ROI. All right, guys, to wrap it up, AWS Cloud Value Proposition Part 2 highlights agility. We managed advanced technologies, pay-as-you-go pricing. Remember the key differences for scalability and elasticity. We have global reach. I threw in AWS Outposts and economy of scale, all of which combine to deliver speed, cost savings, and innovation. Thank you, guys. I look to see you at the next video. Take care.